Welcome to the episode today. I'm very excited about this one because it's not often that we can kind of really get in the nitty gritty of music marketing. It's a passion for me. It's a passion for my guest, Kelly, today. And I'm excited to bring this because if you're a musician, if you're an artist, if you run a business, you know, Kelly has taught me so much, and you've been such a kind of pioneer in a lot of social media kind of tech that we're going to go into in a minute. But welcome to the show. How are you doing today, Kelly? You good?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
I'm looking forward to picking your brain in 1,000 different ways. I don't know whether, I mean, the way I was going to introduce you today is you have 20 years of experience with kind of marketing across the board. You've been involved with major labels. You've been involved with developing independent artists. I don't know whether you want to take a second to kind of intro yourself to my team.
Yeah, sure. So, 20 years. Yeah, so I kind of fell into marketing as a music fan who wanted to work in the music industry. Like a lot of folks, coming up, I wasn't aware of the different jobs available, and showing my age, got into street teaming, if you remember that, in the early noughties, and that lends itself to marketing because that's really about finding fans from the grassroots and building up. And so, yeah, I got my major break with Polydor Records in the UK, living in London, which is the English counterpart of Interscope Records under Universal, for those familiar with the major label system. I was there for just under 9 years, working my way up the ladder from baby bands to a lot of indie alternative rock acts like Queens of the Stone Age and Yeah Yeah Yeahs and Beck and The Cure, and then got to work with a then unknown artist, Lady Gaga. I'll say how this one pans out. It became what it became. It was obviously an amazing time in my life, and getting to work and be a part of that across her first 3 records. And then I wanted to move to New York, where we are now. I'm half American, half British, so thankfully I have the citizenship. I went to the other side of the spectrum in the music industry and worked for Julian Casablancas of the Strokes' indie label Cult Records, which was going from major land to 4 people, and some of whom had never worked at a label before. So complete baptism of fire in the other direction. Continued my relationship with Karen O of the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, got to work on her amazing solo record. And then after that, I was tapped to be the first US boots on the ground for a British digital creative agency called the Weller Media Agency. I have to say the full name because when I say WMA, people think it's William Morris Endeavour. Yeah. And that was me and a gal in a cupboard offering services that were already happening in the UK to a mixture of labels, artists, brands, clients. We grew it from me to 15 in New York, 6 in Nashville, 7 in LA, working with everyone from Republic Records, which is the home of artists like Ariana Grande, Drake, Nicki Minaj, Lorde, through to Celine Dion, social media, doing photo shoots with Justin Timberlake for Levi's, all the things. And then after 4.5 years of being the GM there, I decided to become a consultant and have my cake and eat it, and work with artists of all different levels, partners, and it's been the last 2 and a bit years of doing that, which is how we got to know each other.
It is. I was just going to say, because this is the first time we're meeting in person, even though we've worked together on Dolly Parton's projects.
Yes, it's new up-and-comer, Dolly Parton.
Yeah, just a little name. But I think what I am so excited about is seeing the kind of 2 sides of the coin, because you're one of the few people that has got such a huge amount of experience on both kind of sides of the industry. You've been through the big engines, you've been through the big labels, and you've also kind of built your own thing and have your very strategically minded basis for how to look at independent artists, which is why I feel people listening are going to be able to take so much value from what you have to say today. And I've been thinking about how I want to pan this one out, because there's so much that I want to try and get out of you. But like, I'm going to start with a conversation we were having in the cab on the way down here, and some people out there are calling you like the TikTok whisperer, right? Because you have this very interesting kind of logic and science-based mind that looks at a platform like TikTok with the marrying up of being a music fan, a big advocate of your artists, and using these platforms as a user. And you have this meld where you're like, you know what, I get it, and then you went and worked at really understanding the platform. So many people listening are going to be using TikTok, whether they are just a consumer or whether they're looking to use it as a platform to leverage developing their artistry. I would love to just open the floor for you to dive in, and I don't know where you want
to
start.
Here's where I start with it. I am really, really empathetic towards artists and musicians. I have always considered myself a non-creative, well, I'm a creative marketer, but, you know, I can't make art, I can't sing, I can't go in the studio and do it. I love being adjacent to musicians and helping amplify their careers and their talent. And if an artist wanted to figure out how to navigate algorithms on social media, they would be a digital marketer, right? It's a different vocation, it's a different calling. So I think regardless of your genre, whether you have your eyes set on top 40 pop superstardom, or you're a very cool niche indie artist, or you want to be a DJ, you have to level set with you are an artist first and foremost, and that is your calling. And it's going to behoove you to understand this space, because your whole goal, I would hope, is to make art for other people to enjoy. So when people are like, you know, what is marketing? And connecting that to TikTok in a second, it's really, for me, has been the less gross Big Brother stalking folks sell stuff and like selling stuff and your commodity, the commodification of music being that. And how do I find Kelly in Brooklyn, Mark in London, who might be a potential fan, and expose them to my art and my music and my artistry, and get them to see me in concert or buy a shirt or advocate for me or evangelize about me. So the reason I've level set there is because when something like TikTok comes along, I feel the palpable exhaustion from not just existing artists who've been doing this a long time, but new artists who are like, oh God, another barrier to get through, another hoop for the industry, in terms of, it used to just be Spotify streams or how many Instagram followers do I have, and now it's like, gotta go viral on TikTok. I understand that it's daunting, and so trying to make it digestible and giving people a playbook to understand how to exist in that space that works for them as an artist has been a really interesting learning curve.
Well, I mean, I did a podcast yesterday with a guy called James Hill who said something really interesting that struck a nerve with me. He said, you know, people often forget that these platforms are there to serve them and their artistry, and just like you've said there as well, there's this daunting feeling that you're there to somehow serve these platforms. It's another avenue that you've got to think about. Oh, I've got to now make content as well for this in its own flavor, and I can't just necessarily replicate things I'm doing on other platforms. And it feels like we're always, as artists, kind of somehow subservient to the powers that be that can hold such like wealth of career opportunities if you get it right.
No, for sure. And it's like, look, not every platform is for everybody. I'll be the first to stick my hand up and confess I haven't dived into things like Roblox and stuff yet. There's always like a new frontier. When I speak to artists who are reticent to get into TikTok, who feel very comfortable on something like Instagram, I remind them, like, remember when Facebook tried to buy Snapchat and Snapchat said no? Like, fine, we'll just copy you, and that became Instagram stories. And the amount of artists who did not care to learn about Instagram stories for a very long time, and now people use that way over, I feel like, the grid in a lot of circumstances, and understand how it can work for them. I think it's affording yourself the same, okay, I'm just gonna like try and immerse myself in this environment a little bit because I think it can ultimately benefit me. And the reason I evangelize about it is because I've had friends who are dropped by a record label in 2009, in 2022 have a trending song on TikTok because it's blown up in the anime community or something, for example. So I think it's unpacking a lot of misconceptions with TikTok. It's just for Gen Z, it's just lol dances, it's just, you know, funny trends. That is a big part of it. But every single appetite for music, every genre. One of my favorites is the hashtag vinyl tag, where people can go through their record collections and find their favorite records on certain themes. It's all there. You know, I'm working with an artist right now who has synesthesia, which is when you can see or feel or taste color and sound. And lo and behold, there's a synesthesia community on TikTok. So it's about trying to understand what you enjoy. And so, well, again, just to go back a step, there's two different things with TikTok. There's what you need to do to figure out how to start posting and engaging and being on the platform. And it's a completely other skill set to understand how sounds and music grows on platform, which we can speak to. But going back to like me getting my start, how do I figure it out? I always say, first of all, just lurk, just watch. I personally don't post on TikTok. I'm a lurker. Every morning, you know, I'm sitting in bed, I go through it, I go through my For You page, I look at the hashtags of the community I want to be in, and you tailor that to be your For You page. My For You page will look probably very different from yours. It's exclusively music, New York restaurant recommendations, and cats.
Nice.
But like
the cats thing we have in common.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So my friend could look at it and see social justice commentary, issues about body positivity, things about fashion and transitions. You know, whatever you lean into, that is what you're going to get served up. And so if you enjoy it, you're going to find your people, because you're going to find your tribe and the people that also enjoy the topics you talk about, that is authentic to you and doesn't feel like you're being performative, because it's something that you would enjoy as a consumer anyway. So I think that's the big demystification part of TikTok, is like, you don't have to mold yourself to fit into a way of using the platform that doesn't resonate with you, because trust me, that
because you see other people dancing and the videos work, you feel like, I hear you 100%. And that's a really profound one that as artists it's well easy to get wrapped up in, because you know, it's always like kind of monkey see monkey do. We always have that idea of going, oh, this person did this type of video and it exploded and it did really well, and look at all the opportunities they have. Why don't I take a shot of replicating that? And it seems to be a mantra we have to keep reminding ourselves. It's like there is no point in ever trying to replicate things that other people have done. Yeah,
so just as an example, there's an amazing artist I know called Bright Light. He is a queer kind of modern George Michael artist, makes really good pop songs. He's opened for people like Elton John and Cher, has an older audience. Wasn't sure if TikTok was for him. He's an excellent DJ. He really enjoys making mashups, like taking Madonna and putting it with Khalees, or Donna Summer with Kylie Minogue, whatever. So I said, look, if you enjoy this, you're doing it in your life anyway, why not make that your thing? It's not like you're trying to start a new hobby this stage of your career as an artist. And also it's something that you can like bank in advance. This is the other thing we'll get into, is like the logistics and reality of making content as you being one human person who's also trying to distribute your music, make music videos, promote all the things, go on tour, figure it out. It's like, you know, you're one human. So bank things in advance, schedule one a day, do it for at least 30 days and see if it goes, and tailor it. And lo and behold, with him, it did. I mean, one of the posters had 1.8 million views. He's now, this is the wild thing, it took him like 10 years to get like 23,000 followers on Instagram. He has just passed at 25,000 on TikTok since January.
Wow.
So that's the opportunity with TikTok. And when people find it scary, I had a 46-year-old soul singer say, Kelly, what the hell am I doing on TikTok? And you know what? She really loves the soul greats. She does a great covers of Aretha Franklin, Roberta Flack. You know, she's doing explainer videos about, you know, soul legends you wouldn't know about. She's found her audience. She's got over 20,000 followers on TikTok. It's not crazy, but it's better than Instagram, and she's starting, and it's getting her shows and opportunities.
And that recognition in that space that's relevant. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, understand what you enjoy when you're scrolling. There's a really big difference between being a passive consumer of social media and kind of being aware as you're doing it. So what I mean is, the next time that you heart something on Instagram, the next time you share something to a friend or story, stop and ask yourself why. Was it funny? Was it topical? Was it personal? Did it move you? Probably just made you laugh. Was it cool? Like, there's a reason you go that extra step and don't skip past it or skip the video. If it gives you pause, just ask yourself why, and then start to think about that when you're making content. Like, what would you enjoy if you were to put it out into the universe?
That's a great way of thinking about it. It's like, what value did that just give you that pushed you over the edge to share it? And then in the sense that you're asking the artist that you're developing to use that as an experiment template to be like, what is it that you want to say and what value are you going to give? Is that what you mean by that kind of?
Absolutely. And like, I always again say, like, you know, you'd occasionally get an artist who comes up to you and says, hey, you know, here's my album, my work here is done, go break me. And it's like, I can't care about your project more than you do. Like, that's the first thing. It's really hard. I mean, it's easier in the sense in today, like, I could make a bagpipes album and release it on the DSPs. I would never do that, and I don't know when to listen to it, but it's possible. So it's the best of times, the worst of times in that sense. But when you've done the hard bit and you've made the art, I always say, cut the audience some slack. It's like, think about how much you're bombarded with every day, not just from social media, from work, school, life, friends, family, news, everything. If 60,000 people are releasing songs every day, it's like you have to earn the oxygen in the sense that, like, artist A versus artist B. And I think you have to give some credit to the audience because, you know, who was the last artist that you followed on Spotify or shared to a friend or shared their playlist on Instagram stories and tagged them?
It's a good way of thinking about that. I mean, one of my favourite bands is Biffy Clyro, and I don't follow them on anything. I don't even think I follow them on Spotify because I just love their live presence and I want to go and see shows.
Well, you probably also algorithmically maybe get them in your release radar playlist because you've listened to enough music.
Yeah,
you get
I would do. But I think it's such a great point because like even bands, and I'm sure when people are listening to this, they're going to think this too. It's like even those artists that you actually genuinely love and you would want to see, how many of them do you actually go and do these kind of actionable things for?
Extra steps.
It's like probably 1%, 5%.
Yeah, and one thing I've really enjoyed when I'm working with independent artists specifically is it doesn't occur to them always to elevate their peers and their community, and they really enjoy it when they do. If they make a playlist and they tag 4 or 5 other artists they like. I just had it with an artist recently. She met an artist at a show. They followed each other. The other artist, unprompted, added her to her playlist, tagged her on Twitter and Instagram. She was thrilled. And it's like, imagine you paying this forward. You know, there's always someone below you and someone above you.
And a rising tide lifts all ships, isn't it?
It does. And it also gives you, again, go back to helping cut the audience some slack. You're giving me a kind of a compass and a bit of context. You know, I always joke with artists, like when they say, you know, how would you describe your music or yourself? Everyone's like a beautiful, unique snowflake who's never made music before. But I'm like, look, you can be equally inspired by Rihanna and The Strokes. That's fine. But like, who do you want to be on your related artist tab on Spotify? Who do you want to open for on concert? Who do you want to be wrapped with in a record store? Because that's going to help me, Kelly, the consumer, understand, well, I like artist X. I want you in my radio station playlist. I want you, you know, I'm going to get there an hour before the headliner to check out who's opening because I think it might be my cup of tea. You're helping give, you know, that context to a listener, and you can do that with your content as well. So
let's look at a case study of someone who is, whether they're starting out or they're independent. Let's start down the independent route before we go into major label territory.
Okay.
What are the kind of first advisory steps that you're going to give to someone as they're looking at their strategy? Let's say that they're saying, look, I just want to look at trying to sell out a 500 cap room in my hometown. I'm kind of looking at about developing this to build a real ticketed listening fan base. And I want to start going down the lane of TikTok, and they kind of have an idea of what they want to do. Like, I remember in the cab earlier, you were talking about this whole like macro, micro stuff. I want to almost go through it again because I wasn't quite fully understanding it. I was hoping you can lay out just a bit of insight into how the platform works and how you tend to, I don't want to say manipulate it, but how you tend to, you know, play into the strengths that the platform gives. Well,
there's quite a lot in what you asked there, because the North Star in all of this has to be, who are my fans? And I say to an artist, like, if you are playing a show, what does your audience look like? I love going to a gig and looking around the room and either confirming or surprising me. I remember seeing Angel Olsen and thinking, wow, there's loads more guys here than I expected. And it's because couples were going to the show. Or like, you know, you see an artist where you think it's going to be predominantly LGBTQ fans and maybe it's more of a spread than you realized or whatever it is. So if you don't know who your fan is, you need to figure that out. And even if it's the first 5 people, 10 people, 100 people, it builds, though that is the beginning of your, not to be too marketing-y, your audience funnel. And then people listening won't be able to see people on camera. We used to call it like the audience cone. You know, there's like the top of the triangle is your super early adopter super fans. The middle part of the triangle is like, you know, slightly more on it, but still needs the curation help. Like this, Zane Lowe's told me to like this, or Pitchfork's told me to like that, or this artist I trust has advocated for that. And then the fat part of the cone is like the mainstream.
Right.
And that's really hard as a music lover to remember that most people are like the casual fan who is very like not told what to like in the sense they're sheep, but like they need to be exposed through, you know, big look TV appearances on the radio, having a breakthrough hit. Maybe they own 3 CDs and it's ABBA, Drake and Ed Sheeran, which is totally fine. But when you're thinking about building an audience as an independent musician and getting to your first 500 tickets, whatever genre you're in and whatever age group you're in, you want to appeal to your 10-year-old niece and your 80-year-old grandfather, but there's going to be a core audience at the heart of that, whether that's a 13 to 24-year-old student who is more into that, or a 25 to 45-year-old, older person who likes these kind of nostalgia artists or other things. Once you figure out that audience, it can really inform how you speak to people, because you want to build on that foundation as you broaden out. So using that as your kind of, again, level set is the expression I use. When you're looking at something like TikTok, there's a big misconception like, oh, if I won the lottery and like got Charlie D'Amelio to post my song tomorrow, it would go viral. And she's someone we would class as like super macro creator, massive. I mean, she's on another level. There's even other macro creators, which are probably on the million plus level. If you actually found your tribe, like the people who are at the equivalent at the top of that funnel, the nano creators, the micro creators, who really make sense for you as an artist, your tribe, your community, and build from there, that gives you a really good foundation of relevant discovery, like building affinity. So for example, if you are someone who is really into like Olivia Rodrigo style, we call it POV content on TikTok, point of view, where you're like saying a narrative around a story or a song. Can be very emotional, a lot of storytelling. Excuse me. It makes more sense to find other folks into that kind of content than it is to find someone into hardcore drum and bass.
Okay, I'm with you. Yeah. There was an interesting point you brought up about this idea that someone who is a huge influencer that you might only dream of having like a repost from or something. It's funny, isn't it, how when those moments actually happen, the impact is really underwhelming, and people have a false sense of how much value there is there. And this is what I really like about your strategy, and when I've seen how you kind of deal with these things, because you're like grassroots building up from the genuine organic upwards, and it's like, if you get that right, it actually topples the reach of a big influencer in terms of relevant marketing. And it's the harder way to go about it, because it's much easier, isn't it, to think, oh, I just get reposted by someone, and then overnight I'm going to have this success. But to break it down in the sense that you go, right, if we have this pyramid, it actually makes sense to sow our seeds in the kind of like more organic, real section that is relevant to this particular project, right? Yeah,
and actually, if you look at your favorite massive artists, they really know who their fans are, and they really take care of them, whether you're Taylor Swift or Lady Gaga or BTS or whoever it is, because every artist has peaks and troughs. Some people would have called Art Pop Lady Gaga's flop album. It's probably one of her fans' favorites. And she'll play Vegas till she dies because she's taken care of the Little Monsters and her fans forever. And it's when you really understand and take care of the people, it sounds obvious, but a lot of artists forget it, by things like, why do I need a mailing list? It's like, well, actually, if you think about how many mailing lists you're on, you're probably only on a handful of your favorite artists, because you definitely want to get that tour alert, that merch drop, that new single heads up, that personal note. Adele still writes all her own newsletters, and her notes, and the fact it makes a difference. People feel connected, so you invest in it because you can't control if Instagram's going to change their algorithm or if TikTok's going to come along when, Vine fell by the wayside. You can control who your audience is and your fans are. To go to your point about the feeling, oh, maybe if I get this big look, it will be this big, move the needle game changer. Think of it in terms of Spotify playlists. People get really obsessed with the idea of getting on New Music Friday, when actually being on a bunch of the lower level genre playlists is way more impactful. So the older soul gal I mentioned, she makes soul, R&B, funk music. She has gained all her retained monthly listeners from being on a playlist called All Funked Up, which has 300,000 followers, but they are absolutely hardcore, dedicated funk fans. She actually just had her second song added to it, which is even better.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it's like, would she be mad if she got New Music Friday? Absolutely not.
Will it really change
it won't move the needle.
Yeah.
She's not going to get someone, I call it unraveling the thread. I love doing this as a music fan myself, is where something pricks your ears on Spotify. You look at their about page. Here's another really top tip, and this has come from me from friends at Spotify and the DSPs, the digital service providers that covers all of Spotify, Apple, Tidal, etc. The number one pet peeve is when artists try and be mysterious and have no about blurb, or just like an emoji.
Right, yeah.
It's like, it's not helpful to an editor who you've done the hard bit, you've got their attention when they're reviewing your track. I'm going to learn about this artist. I want to get some context. Where are they from? What are they about? What are they into? And there's nothing there. They don't have time to go on a big Wikipedia deep dive of you, or like Google search you, or look at everything. Like, give them some slack, help out. So first of all, put something, even if it's a one-line elevator pitch about yourself in your about page. I'm unraveling the thread. I then do click onto your Instagram. Another top tip, make sure the links work. I had it yesterday. A band I really liked, clicked on their Instagram from Spotify. The link was broken. So check your links, check it out. You're helping that fan go through that funnel and that journey, where I may even do that 2-3 times of an artist pricking my ears up before I actually do the follow, before I actually do the share, before I, favorite their album to my library. It's a lot of steps. And I think, earning that from fans can really inform your strategy as an artist too, because when you think about why am I being told to like keep putting content out or keep releasing music, you're trying to, again, build that affinity with you as an artist and be like, oh, I'm ready to do that next step of a committed follow. Or
I hear you. And that also does tend to tie into this kind of strategic eagle eye perspective you have, and I kind of bring this back to TikTok, but I know, because I know that's what we're talking about here, but I know this is also kind of the same thing in loads of other platforms, and it goes back to this thing of going, how are you going to cultivate people in this strategy, and how are you going to go from point A to point B, just like we were saying before. And I don't know whether it's something you can try and outline again, but this idea about when we look at TikTok specifically, and you're running these campaigns, and why people kind of refer to you as a TikTok whisperer, is like there's a bit of not really a formula, but there's a method in how you approach it from small to big. You don't just like go straight in with the big influencer. I don't know if you want to talk much on that.
No, so here's the first rub. As someone with a couple of decades of marketing experience, you have to leave your marketing hat at the door, because the audience is king. And so, you may sit at home and think, this is the perfect song for TikTok. This is the perfect lyric, the perfect sound, by the perfect hook. The audience is going to tell you pretty fast if they agree or not. And here's the other rub. They may choose a track that you released 7 years ago, or mash it up with a catalogue song like, B52's with Toxic by Britney, or they may speed it up or slow it down. So that's not to say you just sit back on your laurels and wait for the audience to kind of go forth. It just means you have to put stuff out there and just keep at it, because the number one pitfall with TikTok, I see this time and time again, an artist will try and do like 5, 6, 7 posts and give up. And
yeah, that's me.
Okay. So just to give you an example, there's an amazing independent artist you're aware of called Ariana and the Rose. She's been going a long time as an independent artist, never had the opportunity or means to release an album. She's done EPs and singles.
Legendary human as well.
Yeah, she's a very, very smart girl. And she, was trying to figure out TikTok last year in 2021 and doing a lot of different kinds of content, things with her music, things with fashion, just trying to figure out, behind the scenes and this. And then, she's a songwriter. She makes electro pop dance music, but like Gaga, she starts on the piano and writes. One day she was sitting down and just started sharing her opinions, put it up on TikTok.
And she was just talking, wasn't she?
She was just talking. And, she was probably having a rant about, some female issue of the day. It was really funny, actually. Yeah. The post that went viral, you may have seen it. And she was looking fabulous as she was doing it. She was in one of her stage outfits. She was basically saying, like, as she's playing piano, if you see a woman and she's, she's hydrated and she's killing it and she's got the, the great job and the life and the rest of it, and you're like, who is this mythical woman? The bait and switch at the end is she's probably on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Yeah. And it clearly resonated with a lot of women. I think 8 million people agreed and shared with it. She grew 60,000 TikTok followers in like a week. She had massive accounts like Phenomenal by Mina Harris and Betches and other, down the line, other sounds went viral. People like Alyssa Milano shared it. Amy Schumer started following her. Jamila Jamil used an audio. That was because she was authentically just saying something that resonated with her as a female artist, and it also connected with other women. And so that wasn't like premeditated or planned. It was just through the commitment to playing and trying on the platform. It took from like March to July. So March, April, May, like 5 months. It was her 79th post. If she'd have given up on the 6th post, she wouldn't be in the position she's today, where she's getting brand partnerships, she's doing collaborations, she's getting show offers, she's getting the opportunity to release her debut album finally. She's self-releasing in July. So all that comes because it's a means to an end. she doesn't wake up in the morning and think, I want to be a full-time TikToker.
Yeah.
It's facilitating the music, which is what her North Star is.
She's kind of building an atmosphere and an environment for her music to live in.
Well, let's also be super frank here, and this is something I love talking about with musicians. You have to understand budgets and be transparent about the cost of what labels are doing on TikTok is often in the tens of thousands of dollars. And it's just not tenable for an independent artist when they're trying to do, well, first and foremost, make good music, which I can't help you as a marketer. You know, I use the analogy, I think I told you this earlier, like my friend, a musician once said, like, if you're a carpenter by trade, you don't make one chair and be like, that's the perfect chair, I'm done. Yeah. So you don't just write one song and think, that's going to be my ticket. You know, you just keep working on it. Like most artists haven't written their best song yet, you know? And so you do that in the hard bit, but I think it's really scary for artists to really understand the value and, in a marketing term, ROI, return on investment. I'm trying to figure out, do I spend money on content or Instagram ads or paying creators to use my music on TikTok or do a photo shoot for artwork or pay for a band to go on tour with? It really adds up, and it's really about understanding you don't need to do everything at once. And there are, like, you can control putting organic content out into the world for free. You know, there are ways to amplify that once things start to move. And hopefully you get into a position where you're monetizing things better because you've built a following. And that's a value to partners. But I think it's really important for artists to look at where they're at and their career and be like, what rung of the ladder am I at? Am I selling 50 tickets to my show in my local hometown? Am I selling 100 tickets? If not, how do I get to that landmark and celebrate those milestones? It's really hard for artists. I remember when I think Ariana had her first like million views on YouTube. Like, okay, now I want 2 million views. It's can we just take a minute to celebrate the 1 million? You know, it's the goalpost will always move. And so it's understanding, you know, where am I now? Where do I want to be? And what are the steps to get there? And so as much as like we are focusing on TikTok because that's a kind of contemporary gateway to a lot of this, it still is going to be scary for a lot of people to actually be like, well, how do I start posting tomorrow? And I think that goes back to my original point of be on the platform and understand the rhythm, and, you know, people hook you in the first 3 seconds. So for example, I had an artist who landed a sync of a McDonald's commercial in Europe. And I was like, this is a really great like story for independent artists to understand. Like, how do you get it? You know, this is amazing. Why don't we make a little story time out of it for TikTok? And so rather than her just like talk to the, you know, her iPhone camera and we like framed it as in like, in the first 3 seconds, I'm an independent artist who got a sync. This is how I did it. So like you're hooked immediately. It's a different format. So how she would share it on Instagram, because it's kind of made for TikTok. And then she told the story. I did a cover of this track. A supervisor found it on YouTube. She was going to be cheaper to license than the original. They asked if she could record it in a very quick space of time, turned it around and got it up, and there you have it. And it's like, it had like a couple of 100,000 views as a TikTok because people were really excited to celebrate that win. And it was kind of made with the platform in mind.
And I guess it's also coming back to that core principle of adding value, because there's going to be, of that 100,000, God knows, probably 50% were artists themselves thinking, well, I would love to have a sync like that. And they're trying to look for that value of what path did they take so they can learn things. And I guess one of the really amazing things about, whether it's conversations I've had with you or similarly with James Hill yesterday, and you know, people who are listening to this podcast will be able to check out this episode before, but like, it was always this principal idea of, if you know who you're talking to and why you're talking to them, like, then the game's over and you're bulletproof and you're unstoppable. And it's so painfully simple to be told that, because we actually all know that in our guts. And there's various, like, whatever you want to call them, anxieties or demons that derail you from wanting to believe other things, or you want to have a magic pill that just does it without any of the hard work. But like, that seems to be one of the core orientation mechanisms that you bring when you're looking at strategy and artists. It's like figure out, just like you said earlier, figure out who your fans are, figure out what is it that they want to see, like what is the value that you're going to give them. That's it. If you get that right, and it seems like this is where I'm kind of intrigued to start to needle you a bit on your your history in the major label system, because you have seen the other side of it, which is just like, we've got a couple of million, let's just like bombard the stuff with like ads and billboards and the lot. And I bet sometimes that doesn't pan out as you'd expect it to.
No, absolutely. And look, it's a myth that labels will chuck the book at like everything. And a lot of times now, you know, things are being signed that have already built an audience and have done a lot of the heavy lifting for labels. When I was coming up, they would sign 10 artists, throw everything at the wall, and 9 would get dropped and 1 would work, you know, and they don't have the bandwidth to do that this day and age.
Well, it also feels like we've got these little experimental pools, which are these platforms, right? So whether you look at TikTok or IG or like Snap or like Facebook, you know, in a way, it's like you get to observe the audience reaction to something for years, even sometimes. I'm sure you can sit on the sidelines now and be like, that one had a bit of a bubble, but that one's working. Or like, I've had, you know, people in my circles that have been signed literally off the back of TikTok songs. Now, that's not always the best way of going about it, but like, it happens.
It's like, I think it's a bit scary because then, you know, the pressure's on the marketing team to have like lightning in a bottle twice. And it's like, I was saying, you know, there's a gal I'm working with right now who's having a moment on TikTok. I was like, you need to lean into this and make hay while the sun shines. I would love it if this happens on single 2, single 3, but the chances are actually quite slim. So it's really knowing when to capitalize when you do have those organic moments, and you know, when it makes sense to do that. But going back to the major thing, you know, I think majors get a bad rap for too extreme the other way. Like, some things need, you know, at a level, you're going to hit a ceiling without global distribution, without a radio team, without, you know, the you know, I remember a band who had been on a major, they decided to go independent. They're like, wow, 70 people were working on our project. And it's like, no shit. Swear, but yeah, so there we go, no shit. Well, it's just a bad one. But yeah, so it's like, you know, them understanding there was, you know, a marketer, a digital manager, a publicist, a TV booker, a production manager, and, you know, like all these people that go into it to ask an independent artist to do that versus the system of the major labels. Sometimes you just want the added team and the support.
Well, there's,
you know?
And there's also a time and a place for it, because like you say, sometimes you have to have a globally orchestrated team to be boots on the ground in multiple territories, all synced up, working at release all at the same time. And it's just like, you know, I'm obviously a big advocate of indies, but I know what you mean, because I often listen to people go at me, oh, majors this, majors that, oh, they're all a bunch of, like, and it's just like, well, it's a bit tiring, isn't it?
But you're still going to find music people. Like, I worked at a major for nearly 10 years. I love music, and like,
well, there's always going to be good and bad people in any big system, and also like, you still can't beat it. Like, I know that there's indie labels that have developed into bigger teams, but you still can't really beat the combined cohesive effort of a major when it comes to an international release. It's like, there's a reason for that.
But I think you just have to be very smart and eye-open about what that route means. So like, I think I use the analogy to you, like, I love sitting with an artist and being like, what does success feel like to you? And that could be an independent person saying, I really want to quit my day job and do music full time. I really want to be able to go on tour, release an album. That would be success for me. I've had that exact same conversation with an artist who says, I want to be the biggest artist in the world and sell out Madison Square Garden. I was like, that's great. I'm not here to tell you that's not possible. It just requires a different timeline and different investment and different team. So like, I was at Polydor when they signed Ellie Goulding and saw her in the room with a guitar as a shy, you know, girl. And like, you could see the quality in her talent and everything, but she was developed over time to have her breakout hit in the States, to get that, you know, do the Calvin Harris collaborations, to have that growth. I saw her sell out Madison Square Garden. I think it was maybe even 10 years on, you know, whatever it is, you know, winning Brit Awards and all the things. It's like, that's a different route. I think when artists are really honest with themselves, why are they doing this? Is it to make art? Is it to be famous? Is it to, you know, because they can't do anything else? I know so many successful career indie musicians who do exactly that. They probably don't get arrested going to the grocery store to get their you know, their weekly shop, but they can absolutely sell out a room in their hometown, release music consistently, and make the equivalent of like a decent salary, because they understand that it's the exception now to not the rule to make money from, say, streaming versus understanding the other parts of the money pie. So like they've built a fan base, they maybe have a Patreon, they're selling merch, they're getting syncs and synchronizations and TV shows and adverts and films. They're understanding the broader picture of getting those mopped up revenue streams so they can actually do it for a living. So what inspires me is saying, okay, that's the goal. What does a platform like TikTok bring to that?
Well, it's a beautiful time to be in indie. The very first podcast I ever did, I think I opened it up with like, right, it's the best time in the world to be an artist right now, and it's testament to what you just said, because it's like, before the distribution mechanisms of like reaching so many people, it just was a closed circle. It was like, like you say, you've got your 10 artists in the year, and the label had to invest a huge amount of money into just having a shot with these people. And it's just like the cannon in which you could get fired out could only hold one cannonball at the time, so to speak. And now we're in this beautiful, beautiful world where the playing field's been leveled out. Like, you can have a 16-year-old kid in their bedroom who's got a great idea for some content, and within a couple of months they're like a global superstar. And it's like, and more power to them, because it's like, I think to put my sentiment out there as best I could, because I thought about this a little while, is like, it's so good to see people that can have artistic careers and not be beholden to others. That I think is what I get a real big buzz out of. And that's why I like doing this and talking to people and learning lessons from people like yourself, because there's going to be people out there, and this will be another little bit of info in their bank of like, how do they live their life and are not subservient to a TikTok or a Snapchat or whatever, but they understand it's a tool, and they understand how they can use it and how they can use it to get to their goal. And most importantly, live like a free, autonomous life where they're like, yeah, I can make music all day long and I can live off it, and I'm good, and I don't need to be Ed Sheeran. Like, maybe some people want to be Ed Sheeran and they're going to kill it and they're going to do amazing things, but like, there's so much space to live well. And where I am in my career now is like, I feel like a couple of years back, as soon as I knew that I could just like live and survive from music, I'm like, I'm like, I've succeeded, and now the rest is just a really fun experiment of seeing how far it's going to go. And I guess I have a lot of people around me to thank, and especially the lessons that you've given as well in recent times. And that's what I find really exciting about where music and artistry is like now as we move forward.
Absolutely. And I think, look, what you have in common with Ariana, with Ed Sheeran, with, I love when people think someone's an overnight success. It's like, I saw Lizzo with 6 people at Knitting Factory in Brooklyn. Nice. It's like, people work really hard. They work really, really hard. And I think that...
what is it, 10 years to be an overnight success?
Yeah, whatever. But it's like, I'm laughing to myself because I'm thinking of that awful like Kim Kardashian viral thing of like, you just got to work hard. I mean, it definitely helps when you're a privileged person going to that place. But the, talent is a part of it, but it's really understanding that you do have to really go for it in a committed way that is dedicated. And I think it's also giving yourself ways to make it achievable. And by that I mean, like, sometimes I think the practical tips get overlooked. So a practical tip is schedule making TikTok content the way you would in your Google Calendar, like meeting a producer for a coffee, or like going into the studio, or research time on the internet about like, I'm going to learn the YouTube Creator Studio this week. It's like going to, if it's your job, it's like going to work, so the indie artist I mentioned who started on TikTok, made it like his 2-week 9-to-5 job. This is what I'm going to do, and treated it professionally, because to do it haphazardly and without structure is really hard, not only for regular people, but for creative people. I have people like put calendar reminders, like, when was the last time you added a song to your Spotify playlist? Why not do it every 2 weeks on a Monday? And then you tag those artists and maybe someone shares it. And then, you don't know where the discovery is going to come from. So giving some structure to people that they don't necessarily have the brain for like, using all these digital tools and online things and mechanics. It's like, well, what is achievable? And things like scheduling calendar reminders, giving yourself like, today's going to be Spotify week. What are all the best practices? Do I add canvases to my video? Do I do artist picks? Do I update a playlist regularly? Today's a YouTube focus week. I'm going to learn how to add end cards, or like, make sure all my YouTube descriptions have the lyrics in to help with search, all that stuff. Like, just giving yourself practical tips makes it a bit more manageable because it's so vast and so big, everything you can do. I think it becomes a bit overwhelming for creatives as well.
And what about when it comes to you and your consultancy? And obviously I know that you're spinning 1,000 plates, but like for people listening who are like, I really like what Kelly's saying, I really like vibe with her messages, like how can people like find you and get in touch with you about whether they've got questions or they want to look at coming on board with your company?
Well, what I love to do, and I've done different versions of, mentoring and independent artist tips. I am, again, one person with only so much bandwidth. Like a lot of marketers, I have a very boring company name. My name is Kelly Ridgeway. I'm KR Consults. So krconsults.me. But what I do have is like a copy and paste list of resources. There's so many amazing resources out there. For people who want like a marketing 101 primer, there's a fantastic gal called Amber who runs a course called Deep Cuts. She's on Instagram as Deep Cuts. She'll give you everything from a budget template to release checklist, the 5 things you need for a single, and a lot of that is out there for free on her YouTube channel and her Instagram. And it's understanding again the value of knowledge, like even paying for like a proper course, like one-on-one with a consultant or an expert in the space. It might feel like expensive if it's, say, this isn't my rate, but some folks might charge like $900 or $1,000 for like a whole thing. You would go into an agency and the starting fees would be like $3,000 a month, right? A month for 3 months, that's $9,000, right? So it's understanding the value of like, if you're spending so using TikTok campaigns as an example, maybe it's better for me to do like a course in TikTok content making is more affordable than me spending thousands on a creator campaign when I don't have the foundation there. Like, build the house first, and do that first. So for me, I've got plenty of resources to share for folks. There's things like this. There's the Music Business Podcast. There's loads of great resources out there. I think it's trying to do, if you don't have the appetite to do that, you're going to struggle in this business, because I had a very big manager come to me with an artist who had a pretty decent following, said, Kelly, we want to work with you. I'm like, great. And like suggested some basic ideas and what would involve the artist coming to the party. Oh, the artist doesn't want to do anything. I'm like, well, don't hire me. I'm no good for you, because it's not going to move. It's not going to get you where you want to be, because a lot of these ideas and recommendations involve participation and involve rolling your sleeves up and getting involved. So I think for the most part, for me, it's like, happy to, find me on LinkedIn or hit me on my contact page. I can send you a lot of those initial resources. And I love connecting people with, companies. There's a great TikTok company that I work with called Songfluencer, who I've learned a ton from when it comes to TikTok. Not just TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts.
Is that in the lane of having other people and other influencers to be part of campaigning for an artist?
Yeah, and amplifying a sound. So just quickly on that, because again, it's a mystery for people. It's easier to take something with organic momentum on the platform. And by that, I mean the number of daily video creations. If I have a sound on TikTok and I had 1 video today, 5 videos tomorrow, 10 videos the next day, 20, and it's snowballing, that is organic momentum. That daily video number's going up.
And that's stuff that I imagine that these extremely clever algorithmic machines are watching and learning.
Absolutely, and they push it. So it's why you start to see the same sound over and over again when more people are using it. So taking something like that and taking it from level 2 to level 10 is a lot easier than getting something from level 1 to level 2. And by that, I mean that first bit, the engine starting bit, is really hard. And if everyone cracked that, we'd all be millionaires.
Well, I guess that kind of makes sense to me, because what you kind of said is getting a song that goes like 5 to 10 to 25, like that is proof that there's a value proposition in that bit of content that is already working. So like it's saying something and it has value.
Absolutely.
So it's like you can't take something that isn't saying something and doesn't have value and take it up to 10 ever, because you're never ever going to have that. Yeah,
absolutely. And like when an artist comes to a company like Songfluencer and says, oh, we have, a 4-song EP, which one should we promote on TikTok?
Yeah.
I would always, even just if it's already been released, I would say, well, which one has the most organic videos? Even if it's 30 versus 0, that's already raising its hand, as in the community is already liking it more than, for that platform and that usage.
So a genuine question for you, right? Because let's say that you do have the video that's like growing, at least somewhat in a small way. surely by the definition of that already having an organic, like, snowballing effect, you wouldn't need to have the influencers because it's already got the proof in the pudding. And I guess where I'm going here is, would you not rely on those algorithms to be like, well, these platforms are going to push this as far as it's going to go because that's what they're there to do. They're there to maximize the exposure on content that's going to keep people within their platform.
Absolutely, but I guess the holy grail bit or the smart bit is when you're using budget to only add gas to that fire. Is it makes more sense for me to put an extra $3,000 to $5,000 in this space where it's working than $3,000 on Instagram ads where I'm trying to
push a rock up a big hill.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and look, sometimes you really can spark something, right? So some influencers work trends like things like the Charlie XCX Lock It Unlock It, where it's already going, but then you blow it up by putting certain creators and it really gets bigger. Or the singer Caroline Polachek had one recently with So Hot You're Hurting My Feelings. A lot of these trends come out of a niche community. So that came out of like queer girl TikTok doing this dance, and you're able to put certain creators on to help bring it out of that space. Another really favorite one of mine was an independent rapper called Big Yavo, had a song called Rich, that you may have seen. It was a really big popular hip hop dance trend on an independent label. They didn't have a ton of budget. The dream at that kind of thing is spending 15 to 20 grand on like really big dance creators. They didn't have that. So what happens is a company like Sonfluencer can find that mid-tier, like mid-creator that's really impactful to that community that are often followed by the bigger creators.
Right.
And they want to seem relevant because they have to be on it with the brands.
So then they pick it up as well and you get that,
in that example, Charlie D'Amelio did the dance, Addison Rae did the dance, all for free, and they would normally cost, a lot more money. So sometimes you can use strategists who understand that space to really level up on something with organic momentum. 100%, if you didn't have the budget and left it to the algorithm, it would still have that impact of organic discovery and probably start appearing in things like the Spotify viral chart and things like that, because that is the place for like music discovery, now is helping with that. But in terms of, just to go back to be like, well, an artist is sitting here listening, saying, well, I don't have that. I don't have organic momentum. What you can do, again, you're doing like the left hand is like doing the thing I said about committed to at least 30 days, like stick at it, don't give up after post 4, of trying different things out and trying different content and seeing if anything sticks and leaning into that. And then on the other hand, it's okay, there's maybe strategies and tactics with, it makes more sense for me to find smaller creators in my community, in my space, the kind of what we call nano creators, to use something and see if it resonates. And if not, it's not too much of a loss or an investment. You kind of litmus paper tested that space. And again, that return on investment could be, well, do you know what? Maybe I ended up with 10 really amazing posts that make sense for me that I can duet with on my profile. I can cross-promote to my Instagram story. I can use it in my Spotify for Artists pitch. They ask for marketing drivers. You can say, here's a great example of, we call it UGC, user-generated content. People are using my sound in this way. That's when it's done pre-release as like an original sound. It'll probably, people listening will know that's a popular tactic. And I think it's understanding that inherent value of affinity building versus the value doesn't just have to be measured by this has gone viral.
Gotcha.
We use the example talking about our favourite Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
She has a wonderful new album out, Run Rose Run, with the book that she's written. Reese Witherspoon's just announced as having the movie rights. Go check it out, read the book, listen to the album. For an artist like Dolly, and you see a lot of catalogue artists having massive songs kick off, Fleetwood Mac Dreams being the obvious one. No person in their right mind would have walked into Fleetwood Mac's record label and said, hey, I know exactly the content that's going to spark this global trend. Guy on a skateboard drinking cranberry juice. Like, they would have been laughed out the room, because people automatically think it should be, have affinity with Stevie Nicks or hippie culture or the 70s, whatever it is. So with Dolly, I'm going into her new record thinking, I'm not going to compete with Jolene and 9 to 5 and I Will Always Love You, right? Or Here We Go, Come Again. So I'm going to build that affinity. And that's the value for me of having, she's not actually on TikTok right now, so it's finding the relevant people that can use the sound in a way that makes sense for their audiences and their pages. No one knows what works best for their pages than a creator because they're pros.
Well, also it's like a hive mind, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like this unbelievable network of thousands and thousands of creators mixed with almost like a Darwinian style evolution of content, because the winning ones are going to go. So the way I see it is like, if you can have 10,000 creators creating 10,000 bits of content, and you've got whatever, do the maths, 100,000 competitors, then you're gonna have that cream on the top that's just gonna be. And could you as one person like create and think that against that hive mind? Like, never.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the point of that style of evolution of content.
I think we talked about this analogy that I stole from a friend. It's really helpful. I like to think of every TikTok user as their own little mini music supervisor. And what that means is we're used to musicians or music marketers are thinking that music is king. Like, here's my great song. What's the best video to go with it? What's the best content to go with it that shows who I am as an artist? What's the best story to tell with my music? You kind of have to reverse engineer it, where the content creator's like, here's my great content. What's the best soundtrack to it? So for that guy on the skateboard that day with the cranberry juice, he was like, I need like a vibey track to like vibe out with. I'm going to vibe out to Dreams. It was the best song for the soundtrack to his content. So, Silk Sonic, can be really literal with a song called Skate. It's not just roller skaters using that song. It's people who want to like create a vibe and a mood and everything else. So I think you have to relax everything that you know about, like, I think my music lives to exist in this way, and embrace the fact that people are going to discover it through things that make sense for them and their audience. And it's really fun. Just to give you another like tangible example, the Whitney Houston song, I Want to Dance for Somebody. There's plenty of content on the chorus and people dancing, like, literally, I'm not going to sing it for you, that hook of I Want to Dance with Somebody. Sorry, I'm like choking on my own talk here.
It's because your brain was thinking, am I going to start singing now? And your vocal cords went...
No, absolutely not. Shut it down. But you probably remember a while back, there was a trend of the opening to the song where it goes bum, ba-dum, dum, bum. And people like dancing to the music versus dancing to the lyric. No marketer would have pitched that. Yeah. Right? The audience, like Nina Simone, My Baby Just Cares for Me, it's a dog going down the steps on the bum ba-dum 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 ba-dum. Like, the audience is we did a project around Star Wars, May the 4th be with you. People are making comedy content of, like, the Imperial March, like dum dum da dum, like surprising their boyfriends or girlfriends. I think just being relaxed about the fact that people are just getting creative and finding ways to use music to soundtrack their lives. That's a freedom for artists, because it's saying to people, like, I've gifted this to the world, like, go crazy, like, use it how you want to use it.
Well, you know what, on that note, I'm sure I speak for a lot of people when they say that there's a lot of lessons to glean from that. And thank you for laying so much out. Every time I do these podcasts, I always feel like we could do another 3 or 4 and still not quite get there. But I just think what you encapsulated is just such a powerful message, especially for creators and even, business people, and even people who are just thinking, with all the complications and all of the different platforms and all of the different demands that everyone constantly has every single day, actually what it comes down to is focusing on what you're saying, who you're saying it to. And if you get that right, then you're pretty much bulletproof.
And tack onto that commitment to...
Yes, that's a great one.
For a period of time, like the cadence, like... Even people from TikTok have said to me, it's better for people to commit to like 1 post a day every day at 11 a.m. for 30 days than like, I'm going to do 4 posts on TikTok, then forget it for a week, right? Just consistency and cadence, because it gives the platform a chance to figure out what you're about. They kind of scan content to be like, oh, what's in this?
And like you say about the litmus test, as a creator, it allows you to look and go, okay, across the month we did 30, which ones worked, which ones didn't?
Yeah. And the thing is, the trends that go, the common theme is that they're replicable. Like, other people can do them. So think about the last time you participated in a trend, whether it was a transition, whether it was a lip sync, whether it was like a funny dance or move. It was possible to do it. It wasn't really hard. I had a gal trending. There was like a manifestation trend. Like, everyone could do that. It's just text on a screen, it's fine. So I think sometimes it's really funny. A label will have a really grand idea of like, let's use like a travel influencer with like, a song that's got a lyric about mountains and like show all these beautiful mountains. It's like, I'm in Brooklyn. I can't get to the mountains to replicate this content, So I think, think about what's replicable. And the other key thing is, do things that you enjoy, because if it takes off, you have to keep doing it and lean into it. So don't force yourself to try and figure out doing really complicated editing trends if you don't enjoy editing,
I hear you. Well, thank you again for doing this. We are broadcasting for the last time in sunny New York before we head back to London, back to our hometown. So, Kelly, Ridgeway, thank you so much for doing this episode with me. I look forward to catching you next time.
My pleasure.
I guess I'll see you on the
Hope it
Zooms in the next
helped.
few weeks. Cheers. All right.
Thanks.
Catch you next time.